believe that we have everyone that will be speaking, and I think there are some other reporters and folks from the community that have joined us as well. Good afternoon, and I want to thank Christy Angel, who will be chairing the Recovery and Resiliency Committee, and all that have already agreed to serve on the committee. As you all know, since March, the city's been focused on addressing the immediate public health crisis that is COVID-19. Together, we made enormous sacrifices to slow the spread of the virus. Our neighbors have all stepped up in wearing facial coverings and masks, the stay-at-home orders, the shutting down of non-essential businesses, prohibiting the sale of alcohol at bars and restaurants after 10 p.m., remote working, virtual school for our children, and we are certainly not out of the woods yet, far from it. But we now also focus on the economic recovery and how to build resiliency in our community to lessen the impact of another crisis. We know that really there were three crises that came with this global pandemic. Obviously, the public health crisis, but we also have the human service crisis and the economic crisis that have followed this pandemic that has disproportionately impacted our neighbors of color and women in this community and communities around the country. And so as we contemplate recovery and resiliency, it's critically important that we do that through an equity lens. Today, I'm pleased to announce, in partnership with the President of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners, John O'Grady, and our City Council President, Shannon Hardin, the formation of a Recovery and Resiliency Committee. Some of the top minds across all sectors, from the city and other public and private sector institutions, nonprofits. The committee's work will initially consist of briefings on various topics to assess the pandemic's impact on our economy and its effect on local businesses and human service providers. Working groups will then be formed to identify and develop recommendations and solutions to report back to the full committee. We also know that COVID-19 disproportionately impacted minorities physically and financially. It's imperative that our economic recovery strategy addresses the economic disparities that existed prior to COVID-19, that quite honestly have been magnified and deepened during this crisis. It promotes inclusive growth post-COVID-19. That is what this committee will help us do. It's important to be looking through the equity lens at all times. You know, the old saying goes, don't tell me your priorities, show me your budget, and I'll tell you your priorities. It's critically important in difficult economic times when resources are scarce that you're truly investing in a way that is lifting up those who have been left out and left behind, to ensure that you truly have a dynamic and inclusive recovery. This is a large committee, and you'll see many of the names that have already answered the call. We still have a few calls to other members still out, but in order to assure that every community is able to recover, we must include every sector. We're fortunate to have such a committed community, one that looks out for the well-being of not just themselves, but those around them. What is often called the Columbus Way, that we celebrate on huge public-private partnerships, whether it's the Community Shelter Board, whether it is the revitalization of downtown, the work to reduce infant mortality of Celebrate One, of economic development and neighborhood transformation. We will serve that model, the Columbus Way, to serve us during these difficult times. We asked Christy Angel, President and CEO of the YWCA, to chair this important committee, and I'm pleased to announce that she has accepted. And she's here to share a few words about this work, a work she's involved in every day as President and CEO of the YWCA, and I'd like Christy to share a few words about this group and why she's agreed to lead it. Christy?
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to hear about your vision for our community moving forward and kind of moving beyond COVID-19 response and beginning to talk about recovery. And as many of us have said, recovery for some of us, whether it is women, Black and brown people, those that find themselves marginalized, or specific sectors, we need to be thinking about a recovery that is almost a revival, a way forward that fills some of the gaps and the deficiencies that COVID-19 has laid bare. I am excited to work with a group of community thought leaders, including you, Mayor Ginther, Council President Shannon Hardin, and County Commissioner President John O'Grady, as we embark on this work. I know some may think that we are only covering a few sectors or a few pieces of the work that needs to be done, but let's be clear. The work that we are looking at is the part of the work. It's the part of it's the sectors and the heart of this community that will help close some of the gaps that we've seen and that we knew were there in some instances, but also the parts of the work that lift all of us up. There are many other organizations and associations that are working on recovery for some of the other sectors. It is not our goal to boil the ocean. It is our goal, as the mayor said, to bring forward priorities and solutions, identify some of those problems, things that have plagued us for quite some time, and yet this has given us the opportunity. It's difficult to think about a pandemic and a pandemic giving you an opportunity, but this is giving us the opportunity to really dig deep and look at those systemic things that have been really holding all of us back, and also look at some of the industries and the sectors that have suffered greatly during this COVID-19 pandemic. So I am excited to work with many people who I have worked with before, some new people that I will be working with personally as the chair. But at the end of the day, all of these leaders, these thought leaders, we will be rolling up our sleeves. We will be getting to work. This is probably an 18-month or so process. So we will make sure that we report to the community. Obviously, Mayor, we will have be an open process, I'm sure. And I just look forward to what comes out of this process that really makes our community better and stronger and healthier at the end of this pandemic. Thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you so much, Christy, and a virtual thank you to all of you that have joined us. Really want to thank folks that have already agreed to serve on the committee with Christy. Want to thank President O'Grady, President Hardin for helping us set this work in motion, and we'll be working very closely with committee ahead. I remind a lot of folks that after the Great Recession, 2008, 2009, there was a recovery. But if you look at Central Ohio and if you look at communities around the country, it was not an equitable one. And our goal out of this economic crisis and human services crisis that COVID-19 has brought to this community and communities around the country and the world, that we are very purposeful and intentional as we think about a recovery. It matches up well with One Columbus's prosperity agenda, the Rise Together blueprint that the county has put forth, and our equity agenda as a community and as a city that I shared at the State of the City in February. We have to make sure that even in these most difficult times, when we're faced with very challenging choices, that we're looking through the lens of equity when we're making them. So I want to open the floor to any media who have questions. I do want to say that Mike Stevens, who's our Director of Development, is also on the call if you have questions for him. You should have all received instructions via the media alert, but let me go through them. You should see a hand button next to your name. Click on that to raise your hand. We'll unmute you one at a time to answer your questions. Be sure to unclick the hand after we've answered the questions. Obviously, click it again if you have a follow-up or another question. And please make sure to share your name and media affiliation when you're asking your question. Are there any questions for the press? I guess one question I might ask Mike to speak to. Christy spoke a little bit to our focus that this isn't going to be about boiling the ocean or duplicating efforts of other groups that have very specific and strategic goals around recovery. But give us some sense on what the structure of this group might look like, Mike, and the things that we're going to be focused on. Obviously, we talked about the three crises, the healthcare crisis. We're going to continue to follow the lead of our medical leader and expert, Dr. Mashika Roberts and her team, but around the economic crisis and the human service crisis. But what does this group and the committee structure look like as we start this process?
Thank you, Mayor. Starting out, we're going to be really diving into areas around what's the impact to small business and minority disadvantaged businesses as well. Also the impact on travel, tourism, our cultural institutions. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to focus on the housing needs and the evolving housing needs as a result of the pandemic. We're going to look at our economic base and see where there's areas where we can grow that. Childcare and job security are going to be really important, as well as job readiness. So it's, we've been fortunate. We've got some workforce and higher education partners who will be joining us on that. And then digital inclusion and accessible mobility options will also be an important part of this discussion, because we really feel that these are critical components to achieve that equitable growth and that equitable recovery.
Thank you. Thank you. There aren't any questions from the press. I'll give Christy a chance to make some closing comments, and then we'll wrap things up. Christy, would you like to share any other words or thoughts before we close out?
Mayor Ginther, I would just say that your YWCA in particular is pleased to be a partner with you in this work. As you know, as many know, our mission to eliminate racism and empower women, promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. At the core, that's really what we are going to be talking about. That peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. We can't get to those things unless we go through some of the most difficult things that we've been through, but also if we don't accept the challenge that's before us to really look at the sectors that have been harmed through an equity lens. And if we don't look at some of the greatest challenges before us and begin to think about, in some instances, how we do them in a different way coming out of this pandemic, and in some instances, how we repair. So this recovery effort is an exciting one, not only to this organization, but I would say this recovery effort. I stand here in honor of all of the human service workers, in particular, the human service sector workers and employees and the frontline workers, and on their behalf, sit here and chairing this and serving with all of the colleagues that will be at the table, including you, Council President, and Council President O'Grady. It's time to roll up our sleeves. It's time for you and I and all of us to get to work. I'm excited about it because I personally, and I'm sure others are as well, I'm excited to be talking about something other than COVID-19 response and I'm ready to talk about, and I think our community is ready to talk about COVID-19 recovery. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christy. And to Mike, thanks for everyone that has already agreed to join this committee and work with us. And others will be contacted here in the days ahead. Look forward to starting this work. I think you're absolutely right, Christy. We still have work to do. This pandemic has not left us. This virus has not gone away. We will continue to fight that battle, but it is time for this community to come together and to continue to focus on resiliency and recovery through that lens of equity, and look forward to working with you. And thank you for your leadership on this and so many other things.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Take care.
Bye-bye.